So we're trying to get rid of Joan or Marilyn, one of them.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's Monday, March 12th, 3 o'clock. Time for Health and Human Services Committee meeting. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And since it's daylight savings time, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda? We have a motion by Sauger, support by Drollet. All in favor, please vote, if it's possible. Okay, machine.
It's not, no, she's not here. She didn't start it yet.
Okay. Well, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you. All in favor of adopting the agenda. Number 4, approval of minutes dated February 5th, 2018. We have a motion by Leonetti, support by Kraft. Any comments or questions? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Thank you. It's unanimous as far as the agenda and the minutes. Number 5, public participation. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak and address this body, you have, as of now, 5 minutes to say your piece. Going once, going twice, going thrice, hearing and seeing none, we close public participation. Number 6, department recommendations. Budget amendment, Macomb Community Action, Children and Family Services, Michigan Energy Assistance Program grant. Gary Cutler, who is not here. Come on up. Do we have a motion to forward to finance? We have a motion by Romano, support by Drollet. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Joe Cook, Division Director with Macomb Community Action. We have before you today a request to increase our previously approved budget with an increase of $115,640 for our Michigan Energy Assistance Program. I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Fair enough. Do we have any comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none. Oh, it's not showing up.
No,
I'm sorry, Commissioner Romano. You're not showing up on the newfangled iPad. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at this amount that you want to, the increase by $115,640. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Why are you looking for an increase?
These were additional funds made available to us. The program is actually made of a blend of both federal and state dollars for energy assistance. Agencies around the state have the first quarter in order to spend out 25% of their allocated funds. Agencies that do not, those funds can be recaptured and allocated to agencies who are spending at the proper level. So this was a new allocation of dollars that was given to us based on that.
Thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? We have a motion and support to forward this to finance. I don't know if the pads are working. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The vote is unanimous and passes.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Joe. Number 7, presentation. Clean Water Action, Sean McBrearty, campaign organizer. Hello, Sean.
Hi there. Thanks so much for having me today.
Thanks for being had.
Yes, so I have a little presentation for you all, and special thanks to the Commission for looking at this issue of leaking septic tanks, which we feel is a major issue right now in Michigan that not a lot of bodies are dealing with. So thank you very much. To start with a little bit about Clean Water Action, we're a national nonprofit active currently in 22 states and Washington, D.C. Here in Michigan, we have over 250,000 members and over 32,000 members here in Macomb County. So, septic code issues have been a major problem here in Michigan. You may know Michigan is currently the only state that does not require inspections of septic systems on a regular basis at the state level. So Michigan's counties have been left to deal with this so far. Currently, the scope of the problem statewide is quite large. DEQ currently estimates that failing septic systems in Michigan account for 9.4 billion gallons of raw sewage flowing into our waterways and groundwater annually. That is greater than actually their prediction of 5.7 billion gallons for raw sewage coming from sewer overflows in Michigan, which we all know is a major problem as well. In 2015, Michigan State University did a study on E. coli in our waterways and found that E. coli traceable directly to septic systems was found in all 64 rivers that they studied in lower Michigan. In the Great Lakes region, as of this last year from the Great Lakes Commission, has been noted to have the largest E. coli problem than a larger E. coli problem than any other coastal region in the United States. One of our mottos at Clean Water Action is we all live downstream. And really in Michigan, I don't think there's any community that quite understands that the way Macomb does. With the amount of, with Macomb being the gateway into Lake St. Clair, and the amount of sewage and other water issues that we see in Lake St. Clair that everybody knows is not just from Macomb County, but Macomb is where it winds up because it's coming downstream from somewhere, and we're not regulating this in the state enough right now. So E. coli from failing septic systems we know contributes to beach closures and declining water quality. A little bit of history on this issue. The first county in Michigan to start requiring inspections of septic systems, and it was the first one that came up with the current way that a lot of counties do it of inspecting the systems at the point of sale, was Ottawa County, just west of Grand Rapids. And the reason that they did this back in the 1980s was to protect property values and limit beach closures. Their program over the course of 30 years or so has been successful. They went from seeing a failure rate on septic systems of 25 to 30% in the 1980s to about 9 to 12% today. And then, again, leaking septics are one of the three main sources of E. coli in Michigan waterways. The other two being sewer overflows, both sanitary sewer overflows and combined sewer overflows, and also the third way being from large CAFOs and other agricultural production. So in Macomb County right now, we have around 80,000 septic systems in Macomb County, according to the health department. 25 to 30% of them are likely to be failing. The numbers that the county health department has seen in point of sale septic system inspections carry this to be true. There is, as I said, the point of sale inspection here in Macomb, which currently only 13 out of Michigan's 83 counties are doing inspections. So hats off to Macomb on being one of the 13. It's a good regulation. It could definitely be stronger, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Next, so this slide is from the Department of Environmental Quality, and I'll explain what you're looking at here a little bit. Sorry the resolution isn't better. I can send around the link to where this screenshot was taken from on the DEQ website. But if you look, this is a map of Macomb County and surrounding areas. The regions of the map that are in pink is covered under the current statewide TMDL for E. coli, which is essentially when the federal water quality standards for E. coli are exceeded. The state and other authorities put together a TMDL, which is a total maximum daily load, which is basically, you can think of it as a plan for how to deal with the E. coli problem. So as you can see, the pink area is all current statewide TMDL territory. The purple area that you see around it is an area that is going to be added to the statewide TMDL for 2018 as soon as the EPA approves. The green areas that you see, the green lines, are all streams and rivers that are noted for being impaired by E. coli. So again, we're talking a very large problem that there's been some heroic work done in county health departments to deal with this since our state has really failed so far to come up with a solution. So one of the things that we've done with Clean Water Action over the last few years has been to meet with the health directors and different health departments around Michigan and really hear from the experts doing this work what they think needs to be included in a statewide septic inspection policy. One of the main things that was brought up was flexibility for counties to develop their own building and siting requirements. A lot of what is required for a septic system to function depends on the ground that we're talking about. So whether that's the hard clay that they see in Ingham County, where they have to do mound systems and all sorts of other things for septics, versus some of our other counties where they have more of a sandy loam, which is easier to build septic systems that will percolate or that will accept the wastewater into the ground as intended. So that's one thing that health departments want is flexibility, because in Michigan, unlike several other states that have these, we can't really have one-size-fits-all building and siting requirements for septic systems. And a lot of our counties, Macomb included, do a really good job of making sure that we're siting those in good places already. Another thing that health departments want is funding for this. Right now, our health departments are cash-strapped as it is. We really can't afford to be doing another unfunded mandate onto our health departments. Unfortunately, out of the statewide sanitary code drafts for updates that would require septic inspections there's been 2 drafts reviewed in the last 4 years. One of them was brought up by Representative Colleen Pawlecki, and that one is sort of been passed on at this point. The other code that they're looking at right now is in draft form with Representative Lauer soon to introduce it. That one also doesn't have either of these. It doesn't have flexibility for counties to develop their own building and siting requirements. It has DEQ handle that. And it also doesn't have any funding. It calls on our health departments to be the organizations that administer this at the county level, but it doesn't give them any funding. It only provides about $3 million annually in funds that go to the DEQ for overall administration, which is not sufficient to deal with the scope of the problem. The one positive step in the current draft versus the last one is the last one was inspections only at point of sale. This current one does require inspections every 10 years, which we've seen creates better results. If we look at Ingham County, for instance, has had a septic inspection program for 10 years. And in 10 years and about 20,000 septic systems in the county, they've only done 5,500 inspections. So again, it's taking a lot longer to reach these problems with point of sale than it does by inspecting all of them on a regular basis. So regular inspections versus point of sale is where a lot of the negotiations happen around septic code issues at the state level. Regular inspections are the policy that Clean Water Action and several other organizations prefer. It ensures that each system is being inspected. There's a lot of ways to work around point of sale ordinances. For instance, when a property is passed within the same family from one generation to the next or between spouses, no inspection is required. Another way in certain counties, and I'm not clear if Macomb's ordinance gets around this or not, but you can get around this on a land contract, and there will be no inspection of septic systems required under land contract. So there's loopholes to a point of sale system that don't exist in doing regular inspections. The lifespan of a septic system is generally 15 to 25 years if the system is properly maintained. It can actually be a lot shorter than that if the system is not maintained. And so with point of sale, there are many systems, especially in our rural communities, that go over 20 years without being inspected. Moving on, some of the other benefits of regular inspections here, they just ensure that septic systems aren't damaging lakes, rivers, or groundwater. They promote regular maintenance, which is cheaper for homeowners than replacing failed systems. Nationally, average for an inspection of a septic system is $237, with costs ranging from $70 to $490. It's national averages from 2017. And That is much cheaper than septic replacement, which can take $10,000 to $25,000. We've even heard of costs more than that in places where they have to build mound systems. So keeping regular inspections also really encourages the regular maintenance that helps the systems live longer as well. As far as who conducts the septic inspections right now, there are some counties. Kent County is the only one in Michigan that currently does this, that has health department staff conduct all inspections. That's relatively easy for them to do because they don't actually require inspections. It's a voluntary program. Macomb and most other counties that require septic inspections at this point allow private contractors to be trained and certified annually by the health department. And that system has worked pretty well in most cases here. One note on private contractors, and if this was something in the state bill, this is something that we would want to see as well. If private contractors are conducting inspections, there has to be some transparency clause included in these ordinances. So a contractor who conducts an inspection in the Barry-Eaton counties ordinance, for instance, can't do the repairs that they call for at the inspection to make sure that they're not financially benefiting from inspections that may or may not be accurate. Health department oversight is also really important in decertifying private contractors who don't follow the rules. So funding options to deal with this, to deal with the septic problems. First of all, a lot of health departments right now have fee schedules for inspections and certification of private inspectors, and that can help fund administration of a septic code. But there's other money out there that our communities really aren't taking advantage of. For instance, in counties that have a septic inspection ordinance, or at the state level, if Michigan adapts a septic inspection requirement, there are funds available through the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative and also Section 319 of the Clean Water Act that municipalities can apply for and that county health departments could apply for. So in Michigan this year, Great Lakes Restoration Initiative funds, for instance, provided around $85,000 to Barry County Conservation District to help replace failing systems in that county. Another funding source that is available is community development block grants can be used to replace failing septic systems as well. So another thing that's really important with developing a septic code is having a strong definition of failure, because so much of this depends on whether or not a system's failing by what you define failure as. So this is the definition of failure used in the Barry-Eaton Health Department septic inspection requirement, and this is one that that we've heard from health directors around the state. They think is a pretty good way of catching what exactly is going on with a failed septic system. So I'll read through it real quick. A substantial non-conforming system, the backup of sanitary sewage into the premise or habitable building, direct discharge of sanitary sewage and or effluent to a water course, surface drain, field tile, or the ground surface, discharge of effluent from the sewage system to a storm sewer, field tile, or surface drain, presence of liquid in the septic tank above the invert of the septic tank outlet, presence of liquid in the septic tank below the invert of the outlet as associated with a leaking septic tank, failure or dilapidation of the physical septic tank structure or other system components, or discharge of sanitary sewage from the structure which does not reach the absorption system. And so that's a pretty strong definition that covers a lot of things, because one of the things that we also find in many instances where property is being inspected and they haven't had a septic inspection in years is they'll find what they call illicit connections, where essentially 50 years ago somebody ran a pipe from the house out to the river, and that's where all the waste goes. Or they do it into woods or into fields instead of into a septic tank. So a lot of that stuff is found. This sort of a definition where you pack in a little bit more than you generally would helps to find those failures as well and classify them. And so over the last year or so, we have been doing a survey in Macomb County with our membership. And some of the things that we have found in this survey, our members support regular inspections of septic systems every 5 to 10 years. They also support funding for the administration of the program and to help low-income homeowners cover repair and replacement, a strong definition of septic system failure, and according to our member survey, one really interesting part I pulled out of here, 84% of our respondents from Macomb County would support paying an additional $3 to $10 monthly to reduce E. coli contamination in water. And we didn't classify that as specifically septic systems because we were talking about combined sewers, sanitary sewer overflows as well. But so 84% of our membership was saying they support paying an additional $3 to $10 monthly to reduce E. coli contamination in waterways. And so again, thank you for considering this resolution to call on the state to adapt a septic code requiring inspection. And I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Sean?
Thank you.
First of all, do we have a motion to receive and file? We have a motion by Leonetti, support by Lucido. We have Commissioner Carabelli. Question?
Sean, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. And it sounds like you're pretty passionate and you're on top of what you're talking about. If you can do a couple things for me, before this goes to full board, if you can get the numbers you have from Macomb County when you say 25 to 30% of point of sales fail inspection, I'd like to see those numbers. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm not into real estate, but I'm positive that anytime you sell something and it's going through, there's going to be an inspection done on that.
Yes, Macomb is one of the 13 counties that requires inspection at the point of sale.
So you showed a lot of information, and I'm trying to understand this, so bear with me.
Of course.
You showed Sterling Heights, and that was the center of the map that was all clouded over there. And I come from the northern end. Actually, I have a septic field. Mm-hmm. And south of me, it's all sewers. I think there's very small amount in Sterling Heights that would have septic fields. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm talking less than probably 5%. City of Warren is probably less than that. So as you go into these older municipalities, these are all not septic fields. Septic fields when you get into the north end when they don't have the sewer. So the separation between sewer discharge and septic, I think, really needs to be separated, because this area where it's actually written, when I looked at the word Sterling Heights, I can't see that coming from septics because they don't have them anymore. And again, if I'm wrong, somebody enlighten me. So that, to me, the numbers aren't adding up to me.
Okay, well, and to clarify, so this, the E. coli map that I just pulled up again here covers E. coli from all sources. The state does not test for what source what is coming from.
And I understand that. That's why I'm asking the question, where if you were going to say, hey, up toward Shelby Township, you can show a lot more E. coli because you're saying failed septics. You mentioned at the very end illicit hookups, people putting it out in the woods. Now, yes, that is a problem, and that should be addressed. And during an inspection, that usually comes to light when somebody wants to sell a home. Mm-hmm. But if somebody has a leaking septic and they're not on a stream, they got a problem, and no one's going to want to stick around and have that problem if their tank isn't working or their field. I mean, and you're talking about these inspections and this, I just trying to slow it down to get a better grip on it. I want clean water. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that there isn't a problem with septic fields. I agree that there probably is. But I bought the house I grew up in. It's a second septic field. And you know what? The one that's in there right now is probably 30 years old, and there's not a problem. It's a pure sugar sand, and it's not a problem. There's a lake behind my house, and they actually get it tested. There's no E. coli coming from any of the homes because it's clean. You mentioned that there was 3 sources. You said it was septic. You said it was farming. What you failed to mention is natural, because Stony Creek doesn't have any septics going into their situation. They found out it's natural from the birds. It's from the ducks and the geese, and that E. coli is why that beach would get shut down. I can't speak for Metro. I can speak for Stony Creek, and that's what they came out and said, this isn't a septic thing. This is naturally, not from farming, mm-hmm. but from the protected geese that were coming, and then they finally lifted that protection off, and they're just hunting. But
yeah.
With that said, there's a lot of things that add up into this, mm-hmm. and I'm not saying you're not right, but you're giving me figures, and until I can see those figures and I can look at it and understand it, I can't support anything until I can get a good grip on that. And again, not saying I wouldn't, but you're saying a lot of numbers with no statistical backup of what exactly numbers compare to what. Because again, you go south of Hall Road, I can't speak for Harrison Township. Is Harrison, they have septics in Harrison Township on the water? Okay. Sterling, or St. Clair Shores, they still got septics? I don't think so. No, and I'm agreeing. That's why I'm asking the question. When you show a big map like that, well, that's not from Septic in Sterling Heights, just in my opinion, and I just need to get a better understanding of that. So that's it. Thank you.
And I will make sure and get those numbers for you, and thank you very much for your interest and for the question. I did also want to just clarify one other thing. So the source of E. coli isn't necessarily in the community where they find the E. coli. Like a lot of it is from, for instance, I know you're all familiar with the problem of, a lot of E. coli from Oakland County, for instance, flows into Macomb on its way out to Lake St. Clair. And that's actually another thing that Clean Water Action is working on, is we're working with the Oakland County Board of Commissioners, where actually in Oakland County they do not require septic systems to be inspected at all. And they have more systems than you guys do. So we've been working to address that problem there as well, which then, if Oakland County decides to address this, that's going to help the situation in Macomb as well, since Macomb is downstream from Oakland. And so, yes, I understand, definitely that, and, and you're correct, a lot of systems, if you're maintaining them properly and everything, they can last 30 years or longer. The 15 to 25 was on average nationally. But yes, I will get you those numbers. Thank you very much.
So I'm sorry, that's a national average?
Yes.
Oh, so it's not remaining?
No.
Okay, just on that note, and that clears up a lot, because I'd like to see how it affects us personally. So we're going to pass a resolution, and if it's not, the numbers don't, you know what I'm saying? I got to
Yes.
be able to understand. Then the one last thing you said at the end, you said that almost everybody would be in favor of paying $3 to $10 a month. Why would you guys not want to put a ballot initiative together yourself instead of going through the legislator and do it that way?
A ballot initiative is a very expensive proposal. We're grassroots. We're a grassroots organization, and we like to try to figure out where our membership is on things and act. That was, but yeah. So that 83% is within Clean Water Action members in Macomb County. We have about 32,000 members in the county, really of all different walks of life and different communities.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Carabelli. Next up, we have Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. Thank you for coming up. You're right on point. This is an important area that needs to be looked at, and it is part of the issue of overall water quality, and may not be the biggest source or the problem, but it certainly is an area to look at and be concerned about. And our county should be commended, because back in the middle 90s, we developed our own countywide on-site septic inspection at the time of sale. Best way to control it and can take care of the problem at the time. A lot of things get done if people need to sell their house and make sure the system's up for sale and make sure the system's right. I personally just replaced my field this summer. Cost me $9,500 plus another $2,000 to re-landscape over the top of it. And it's an expensive proposition, but it needs to be done. And I've lived in northern end of Macomb County most of my life. I mean, you know where the people got septic problems, because if they're leaching or something like that, just, it's like living near the farm, which some of us think that's so bad, but other people don't. So, you know where the problems are, but they end up taking care of themselves, and it needs to be done. I think that should be done by a countywide basis by these counties. Oakland County should probably do the same thing. I think it's the best practice. But I think you're going too far when you want to mandate inspections every 10 years. That gets into a whole area of expense and unnecessary expense, as Commissioner Carabelli said. Properly maintained field will last 20, 25 years. And your own information saying about, you get some number that about 20 years, that haven't been inspected. Well, that's because they haven't been replaced, because they don't need to be replaced. But I'm not going to support a resolution calling on the state of Michigan to pass mandatory inspections for septic fields. I'm not going to support this resolution just because of the way it's worded. I think it's a good idea. I talked to my other friends in neighboring counties up in the thumb around Saginaw Bay who are dealing with similar issues we faced in Lake St. Clair back in the day. and about these voluntary ordinances that on-site inspections. That's the best way to go. But things get a little too far, the mandate on inspections. First of all, who's going to pay for it? And it just gets problematic. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Next up, rather involved list. Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sean, thanks for coming down.
Thank you.
I support this in retrospect that I think we all agree we want clean water. But I think Commissioner Carabelli has a great point. And I would like to see numbers of how many actual people in Macomb County have septic fields. Because we can only control Macomb County, and control is probably the wrong word. But what about St. Clair County? What about the outlying county? I'm concerned about Macomb County in that we have Lake St. Clair and the Clinton River. And we have just seen recently from Commissioner Miller, Candace Miller, that we had a factory discharging directly into the Clinton River. We had a apartment house directly into the Clinton River. There was no hookup to the sewers, nothing. But I honestly feel that Macomb County has, if you're talking percentages, very small percentage of septic fields. We do have them, and I think probably your district has more. Harrison Township probably has more, and they're a lot closer to Lake St. Clair. But there's a point about the geese too. They again, as I said, we all want it, and the cost factor is kind of that shakes me up a little bit when you say, well, there's CDBG money and Great Lakes money, Great Lakes Initiative money. You have to fall within certain parameters of that, and you're just a little bit over that. And you just heard Commissioner Brown say it cost him $11,000 for his to repair his septic field. And yes, there is a law here in Macomb County that any home sold has to have a septic inspection. Now, any real estate broker worth their salt, regardless of how it's sold, cash, contract, any mortgage sold with a septic field definitely has to have an inspection. Any contract or cash deal does not, depending on the broker, because I would insist to my people, absolutely get a septic field inspection. But again, it's a minimal cost, and like you said, there has to be transparency with the inspector. Mm-hmm. Anybody can, what's the expression, buy an inspector, and we certainly don't want that. But on the basis of it, I think it's a great idea. I just think, as Mr. Carabelli said, and Commissioner Brown said, it has to be fine-tuned. So I'm in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Drollet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Sean, for being here. Thank you. I guess I'm a little bit concerned about giving we currently, I believe, have the authority to enact our own ordinance, and we've done so with a point of sale. But with this resolution, we're saying we don't want to do anymore. We want the state to impose one on us, and we don't know what it's going to look like. So when I hear things like calling for an inspection every 10 years, I wonder about somebody who builds a brand new home or puts in a brand new septic field like Commissioner Brown, and then 10 years later, even though the failures usually the average is 15, 25 years, that person who just put in a brand new 10-year-old field is going to have to pay $250 to $500 for an inspection on a field that's incredibly unlikely to be a problem. And they won't have any choice because we've imposed this 10-year mandate, whether it's a 10-year-old field or a 50-year-old field. And so I'm just a little concerned that we have the legal ability to craft and shape an ordinance that makes sense for the citizens of Macomb County. Yet we're introducing a resolution that says we don't want to do it. We want the state to tell us how we're going to do it, how much it's going to cost, how often it's going to be done. And I think that's an unnecessary abrogation of what we could do as a county. We've chosen to do a point of sale one. I'm not sure whether that's working great or not. I'm honestly not as informed as probably Commissioner Romano, who deals in real estate and others. But I have no idea what the state's going to come up with. I have no idea what fees they're going to impose. I don't know how they're going to pay for it. I don't know if they're going to make us pay for it, but they're going to set the conditions. So I just think that we can go ahead, if we believe we've got some good ideas about regulating these fields in a manner that makes sense, we can go ahead and do that. To say that we don't want to do it. We want the state to tell us what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, and we're going to do it every 10 years, and we're going to make people pay whether it's a brand new field or not. I have some concerns about that. So I just don't see the need to punt this to the state level, the federal level, or the United Nations. I think we can handle it here locally. We have the legal authority and power to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kraft with Commissioner Kleinfeld on deck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I personally received a couple hundred letters from constituents through your organization, so I want to thank you for coming today.
Yeah, thank you.
As somebody that represents Chesterfield, New Baltimore on the water there, this is, the water is a big issue. Clean water is a big issue to me, and I know it is for my residents as well. So having said that, you brought up a couple pieces of legislation that were brought up this session. One of them failed, and one of them you said is just kind of out there.
Well, and to be clear, so I brought up two pieces that were that have been debated over the last 4 years. The bill from Representative Pawlecki unfortunately passed away a while ago, and that bill was that bill she had introduced but hadn't really gone anywhere. There's currently no bill before the state legislature. There is one that's in draft form and likely to be introduced this month. However, that also does not provide the funding to our health departments that would be necessary.
Okay. Has it been introduced yet, or you said it's going to be?
No, it hasn't been introduced yet.
Okay.
It's only in draft form.
Okay, and then I'll try to keep an eye on that. Another question I have is, we're the only state that doesn't have one, and my general rule of thumb is if we're the only state that's not doing something, we're probably doing it wrong. And in this case, I would have to agree with this. And I'm just wondering if you could provide me with a summary of what the majority of states are doing that seem to be working, just as a general idea in the direction that we could head. I know, Commissioner Gillette was mentioning, 10 years is 20 years best practice is 5 years, but I'm not an expert. I don't know. So I'm just curious what other states are doing, that they've come up with.
Well, thank you. That's a really great question. So a few things on that. So first of all, the EPA recommendation, which actually, frankly, isn't done anywhere in the United States correctly at this point, is inspecting all septic systems every 3 years. Now, that is, you want to talk about a big burden on our health departments, every 3 years definitely would be. The only state that actually requires inspections every 3 years currently is Wisconsin, and they allow homeowners to do their own inspections. So not really much inspecting going on. Now, so, states are the laboratories of democracy. There's been a lot of ideas on this. One of the ways that one of the really interesting ways that California uses it and a couple other states, so the theory behind it would be this, essentially. Those of us who live on sewer systems pay sewer bills, monthly or quarterly or whatever it winds up being. A lot of them $600 to $1,000 a year in sewer bills. We pay those fees to take care of our waste. And so some states like California have structured essentially what you could think of as a sewer bill for septics, where they add a certain amount of money onto the property tax every year for every property that has a septic, which goes into a separate fund, which goes to pay for the inspections. So those are sort of, and so like I said, and there's wide varying options between the two. No two states really approach this the same way.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for being here today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Gillette said the inspections cost between $250 and $500. I don't know if you said that. I had some technical difficulties over here, and so I didn't hear everything that everybody said.
It was $150 to $500 in that range, the average being $250 or so?
Yes.
237.
Yes, and this was countrywide.
Okay.
Let me find that slide here.
Okay, so a couple of things. The first is, while we represent Macomb County, this discussion is on a state law, and we may not have a lot of septics in Macomb County, but I think that we have a lot in northern areas that go through the river and into Lake St. Clair and create a problem. So all those other counties affect us more than they are affected themselves, I think, in a lot of situations. I want to correct something, just so you know, Commissioner Gillette. We do not have the authority to set up inspections of septic individual cities and townships do, but the county's authority with regard to ordinances is very limited, and that would be outside the scope of what we actually. That's not true?
That under the state health code,
Oh,
we did.
okay, then I stand corrected and apologize. Thank you.
My IT professional will take care of it.
Okay. And then the last thing is, with respect to the brand new ones, I mean, if we are going to pass this, we can write it any way that we would like to write it. We could say, you know, we're asking that you pass a law that, you know, a brand new system doesn't need to be inspected for 20 years, but thereafter, every 10, we could do whatever we want. It's our resolution. And we know that really the state's not going to tailor whatever they're thinking about doing to what we're saying anyway. I mean, let's be realistic about that. And I would be open to having a discussion if we would like to take a look at it. And then just a small grammatical thing that I will give to Patty that will be on the next one. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Smith.
Thank you. I have a couple questions for you regarding, have you talked to Candace Miller, our Public Works? What's their feeling on this? I mean, that's a department that would probably deal a lot with this.
Well, actually, the
Health Department.
the Water Resources Commissions generally don't deal with septics a lot. That's usually under the Health Department's jurisdiction.
Well,
and
have you
we
talked
met
with our Health Department here? Then what's their position on this resolution?
Well, we met with the Health Department director back in August 2017, and his opinion, I don't want to speak for him, but he was definitely in favor of looking at this. The concerns that he had at that point in time were right along the lines of what we were seeing with other health directors, which was he wanted to make sure that there's both flexibility for counties, because they actually do in the Macomb Health Department. And sorry, just to clarify a little bit, so Macomb is, in Clean Water Action's opinion, one of the counties that is dealing with this issue. Definitely. And the work being done at the health department on this issue has been really good. The ordinance could be stronger, and he was, your health director was in favor of, you know, revisiting a statewide sanitary code and seeing if we can get something done at the state level on this. Yeah, those were his two concerns. We're making sure it's not an unfunded mandate, and there was flexibility for counties to develop their own building and siding requirements.
Okay, so going back to Drain Commissioner Miller, I mean, although you say it's not generally in their purview, I mean, that's really what she's been up to with the suit with the drains and finding these illicit connections and everything like that. So I beg to differ. I think that it is something that she might be concerned about and maybe even want to put a, you know, whether it be a thumbs up or a thumbs down or a, hey, we need to change this kind of an attitude. And Commissioner Lucido.
Point of order, Commissioner Lucido.
Just point of information, she has been notified. We sent it to her. I actually spoke with her before putting anything in place, and she suggested we speak with the health department. We did, and that was before any of the research and all of that. So she is aware.
Great.
And then when
No
recently
opinion at
it
this
was
point?
sent to her, her response was, thank you for sharing, and this is something that the health department should be in charge of.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
back to, I believe that Commissioner Kleinfeld's position on this is kind of my position, where I think we should do something, but I think we should not just leave it up to the state to then design it. Hey, we want a resolution. Make it however you want. I think it should be something that makes sense and has maybe worked with the health department, and we write it the way at least we would want to see it. So if we send it up there, at least we could say, this is what we want. If they give us something completely different, we can say, that is not what we asked for, right? So that gives us a little bit of, I guess, say in the matter, whether it works or not. So Commissioner Drolet mentioned something about, well, we can control Macomb County, and that's where we live, and this is that. But you brought up earlier that a lot of our problems come from Oakland County. We can't control Oakland County. A statewide, you know, ordinance similar, you know, to what he's talking about, kind of makes it safe for us downstreamers, which we are downstreamers. It's like living at the bottom of the mountain. We are the ones that are affected by it. Commissioner Carabelli, I live in Clinton Township, and there's a zillion septic fields still in there. Even when there's sewers on the street, the old homes that were on septic are not going to pay the $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 to hook up, because it doesn't cost us anything for a septic right now, right? I mean, just the maintenance and, at some point $9,500, which at the end of the day is still cheaper than for after 20 years of being on the sewer system. So I agree with you. Maybe, at $250 after 10 years, let's say that's the average that you're going to pay for an inspection, that's $25 a year. I would pay more than that by far on one sewer bill if I was attached to the sewer. So I'm just kind of balancing this off a little bit on some of your concerns. And then when we talk about when they're sold, they're inspected. So we are doing something, which is better than nothing. But we might sell a house after 15 years of a septic being in place. It passes right then, doesn't sell for 25 more years, and 5 or 10 years after that, it started failing and no one knows about it. Because failing doesn't always mean that it's bubbling up in your backyard. Failing could mean that it's leaching, like you say, into the wrong pipes or the wrong drainage ditch, and you don't know it. So I think that you're on the right track, and as like Commissioner Kraft said, usually when you're the only one out on something and there's 49 other people doing it, maybe you're the one that needs to rethink what we're doing. But in a constructive way, a little more detailed, I think, what we would want to see here.
And I absolutely agree with your point that I think this is definitely something, in my opinion, best not left to the state. One of the things we've been working with in Clean Water Action over the last few years has been seeing if we can get some of the health departments in Michigan that really are doing their jobs on this, like Macomb and Ingham County, and some of the others that have already begun to address this issue, on the same page with a policy that could then be brought to the state level with our health directors. Yes, and so to sort of use the good work being done at the county level to build momentum for actually doing the work at the state level that needs to be done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lucido.
I want to thank you, Sean, for coming down and answering all of these questions. Crystal and I were working on a lot of the research behind it, and the questions everybody's asked have been ones that we've had as well. I think the main things to point out was that, the letters that I received were overwhelming, and I know I wasn't the only one, and that's what got me looking into this. It's important. We are the only state that isn't in it, but I think this is a starting point. I think we can work together. I know a lot of people have ideas of language that could be used, and something we could do where we could, work with other counties. The biggest thing is we can pass the greatest resolution in the world, but if Oakland doesn't, we're still getting their mess. So that's why statewide was more considered than just county. But I agree, we do want to be the ones saying what we want and how we want it and how it will be funded. So, yeah, I think this is a good starting point, and we can tweak it however we like.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks again for coming here with all the information. A lot of good points brought up by other commissioners. I'm not going to rehash them, but let me get down to like a specific situation as a hypothetical. So say a person's gets their septic field inspected, and they find out it's completely off grid. It's a problem. Now, we're talking here, Commissioner Brown said he spent about $11,500 to get it done. So if the person doesn't have the funding to complete it, what are we to do? Where's the funding going to come to solve that problem? So in other words, if I have a constituent in Harrison Township and it turns out they're dumping all their stuff into Lake St. Clair, the inspection discovers that, I can guarantee you that constituent's not going to want to spend $11,500 to clean it up. He's going to feel bad, but he's not going to have the money. So my only concern is we all want clean water. There's not a single person in the world that's going to run around. Not even the person who's dumping into Lake St. Clair is going to say, I don't want clean water. But where's the funding going to be? If that person can't fix it with their own dime, is the state going to come in and fix it for them?
Well, that's a great question. So there are three sources of funding that can help to deal with that. that are existing. This is without creating new sources. First, community development block grants can actually be used for most major home repairs for folks who qualify. If somebody's not able to afford that, they're likely going to qualify. And basically, it's a 10-year loan that after 10 years, if you're still in the house, the rest of the money is forgiven through the Community Development Block Grant Program, which would be able to pay for septic repairs up front. Two other sources that can be tapped into, and counties in Michigan that have septic inspection ordinances are already allowed to tap into this. Michigan on the state level can't tap in right now because we have no statewide ordinance, and we would need one in order to get to this money, is the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, as well as Section 319 of the Clean Water Act.
Okay, so if Michigan adopted a septic system, then we would be able to tap into the Federal Great Lakes Authority money, is what you're saying?
The Great Lakes Restoration
money, yeah.
funds,
Okay.
yes. As it presently, since Macomb does have a point of sale ordinance, presently in Macomb County, the health department is already eligible to tap into that money and to apply.
All right.
Yeah.
The next question I have is, I know we talked about Oakland County. What about St. Clair County? I know this resolution says 16% of counties. Does St. Clair County have a septic system, if you know?
A septic inspection requirement?
Yes.
They do not.
They do not. So Oakland County and St. Clair County do not.
Mhm.
And we're downstream of both of them in a sense. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for the information. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We've got Commissioner Carabelli on deck. Question. The 25 to 30%, so that number is not local but national, correct?
No, the 25 to 30% failure number is the number that I got from the Macomb County Health Director.
Okay. Can you put on that map of everybody around that you had on here earlier? That's the one. I'm looking at this, and the reality is, after everything's said and done, St. Clair County and Oakland County are really blasting Macomb County. And this seems like it's a good idea. I appreciate you coming here, but you know what? Personally, get St. Clair County and Oakland County on board, and I'll support the whole thing. But we've got the ordinance, we're doing the work, and okay, we can push, but it isn't going to help much. We're doing all we can here. So that's my 2 cents. Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I was remiss by not thanking Commissioner Lucido for bringing this forward. Thank you. Appreciate it very much. It's something that needs to be discussed, and something needs to happen with this, and I agree. So thank you. With that said, I believe Commissioner Kraft and you were talking that one failed, and you're working on another piece of legislation to go up. Is that correct?
We are not working on that.
Or
This is just
somebody
something in the one of the state house representatives.
So I guess that gives you a time to kind of look at this and come up with how you'd like to build it. I'd like to make you a suggestion when you go to look at this. And I listened to what everybody was saying, and some great input. I also didn't tell you, and I was wrong, so the system I have is 35 years old since it's been replaced. But there's also a caveat with that. It's pumped out every year, not every 3 years.
Nice.
So I think that's the direction you need to lean into when you're talking about any of this, instead of having all these inspections and all these different things, because I guarantee you the honey dipper that's going to come to somebody's home and there's a problem, they're going to let them know that there's a problem, and it should be addressed at that time. And if you want to talk about having somebody that has a septic tank that it has to be pumped out every year, that's something I can get behind. It's not going to cost anybody any more, and actually it's going to save them money from spending $11K to $20,000 for a field. So the more you pump it out, the longer the field's going to last. So I would lean more towards that way on doing this, because by requiring a yearly pump out, then you don't have the problem of that going out. So just for thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last but not least, we've got Commissioner Leonetti.
Thanks again, Mr. Chair, in the second round. I had just one last question.
Of course.
So the Great Lakes restoration money, Macomb County's eligible. So if I have a constituent that does an inspection, on a point of sale and then discovers that their septic system is completely screwed up, they can eventually maybe get some of that Great Lakes restoration money, where a person in St. Clair County or a person in Oakland County that doesn't have a plan cannot get that Great Lakes restoration money.
Yes, and this is how it works, basically. So that person, your constituent, could not directly apply for Great Lakes Restoration Initiative funds. However, the Macomb County Health Department, or in the case, I'll give you, in Berry County, for instance, there's a rural county, mainly septic systems in Berry. I don't even know that the one city in the county, Hastings, has a sewer system. It might be all septics. They have a septic inspection requirement as well, and the Berry County Conservation District, because they have that requirement, was able to apply for Great Lakes Restoration Initiative funding in 2017. They received over $80,000 that can all be used directly to help homeowners replace failed systems.
So potentially, those counties that do have a plan almost don't really want to have other counties have a plan, because we're taking away that potential money we could get from the Great Lakes Restoration. I mean, that's just an issue to think about, because, I mean, from our standpoint, we have a pretty good system, at least a point of sale system, and so we're going to have more access or potential access to Great Lakes Restoration money, or say St. Clair County and Oakland does not. So that's just something to think about, because in a sense, those of us counties like Macomb who are responsible might not really want to have a statewide plan, because you're taking away potential opportunity for us to get money.
However, on the other side of that, Macomb can be as careful and as prudent as they want, but the water is still going to flow from Oakland and St. Clair.
No question about that. I get that. I get that 100%. But it's just something to think about, because like a small county like, what did you mention, Berrien County? Think about their perspective. They're going to be like, we don't want a statewide plan, because now we might not get as much Great Lakes restoration money. So just something to think about as you go forward on trying to move this.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Last on the list is Commissioner Brown.
I'd suggest before we go forward and pass any resolution, we bring our health department in, give an overview of what's going on, to give them a local perspective. They'll talk about clean water, Great Lakes Restoration Initiative money being used to fund county programs, to fund illicits or septics. I've seen it done, but very rarely. St. Clair County has whole communities where their septic fields are failed. They can't build because the state won't let them. There's no room to put any more septic fields. They really got a problem, and they're trying to figure it out. But right now, these communities are stagnant, and they're dying because they can't grow. So they've definitely got issues, and they need to take care of it in the smart ways to do what our county's done for other counties. And if they want to do that, they should be able to do that. So it's a smart way to get more attention on the issue. The degree in which you go is the question, and how far you're going to push it. But I think a good place to start is with our own county. I was on Michigan Association of Counties when I was young commissioner when we were passing these ordinances, and the Environmental Affairs Committee there at the time debated these issues too. And a lot of the information we got that helped create our own ordinance here came from some of those county discussions we had there. And they're our lobbyists on behalf of these issues statewide too. So that might be something we want to look towards too, to help make our feelings known rather than drafting our own ordinance and every with or whereas maybe. So just it's all good issues to look at, because Macomb County has been the leader in this state in water quality, bar none. We've been on the forefront of how to do it right. And now we've had to step back a little bit when the funding went down during the recession, but we still are known as a leader there, and this ordinance that we have currently in place is a model for it. Is it the perfect one? Well, maybe not, but it's certainly a far better way. It helps get the improvements we're all seeking quicker than not doing anything at all. So thank you for coming. I do appreciate the activism there, and but just need to look at it a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing and seeing none, we have a motion and support. Motion by Leonetti, support by Lucido, to receive and file. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Does it work?
Yeah, it is now.
Oh.
There we go.
We've joined the 21st century. Okay.
Briefly.
Yes.
If anyone has suggestions and things that we can change, ways that we could change this or work on it, will you please bring them to either to Crystal or myself, and we can figure out the best way to do this.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucido. Well done. I think everybody voted, but it's not coming up on here. I believe it passed. I need my IT professional here. Passed 13 zip. Thank you very much for being here. Number 8, resolution urging the state to pass a statewide septic code. Commissioner Lucido.
You're not going to seek a motion. You're just going to bam, Commissioner Lucido.
Well, no.
Well, I think we've had a very long discussion on the
Commissioner
topic.
Brown came up and said a motion to table. Is there support on motion to table? We have motion to support by Drollet. We have a motion by Brown, support by Drollet to table to date certain. Yeah, then.
Adjourn, you have to pick when you're.
Well, no, you have a date certain or a time. The next Health and Human Services meeting? 6 months. No, I don't think we can go 6 months. Point of information only.
Mr. Chairman, if the motion makers would like to withdraw the motions, we don't have to take any action, therefore can come back at any time that is prepared.
That would be good.
Since this was brought up by Commissioner Lucido, do
I
you
make that motion.
do you withdraw your motion as opposed to there's no discussion for a tabling motion?
I'll withdraw my table.
Okay, Commissioner Brown withdraws his tabling motion. Tabling motion is now withdrawn. Commissioner Lucido.
I suggest no action at this time.
Commissioner Lucido withdraws her motion, her resolution, until
Until we've
further
decided-
discussion
thank you.
and investigation.
Yes.
Thank you. Close enough, yes. Number 9, correspondence, Area Agency on Aging 1B, first quarter update. We have a motion to receive and file. We have a motion by Roulette, support by Romano. All in favor? Oh, we are going to have, prior to the vote, Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Since you sit on Area Agency on Aging, I haven't heard anything recently. Is there anything going on that we need to know about, or?
We will be having the new CEO of Area Agency on Aging coming in next month.
Okay. Other than that, nothing big going on?
Nothing big going on. We've passed all the tests and so on and so forth, and we are no longer on probation. So things are looking good. Okay, we have a motion and support for 9. Please vote if you have not already. Next, Macomb County Human Services Coordinating Body 2017 Annual Report, motion to receive and file. Do we have, make a motion, Romano? Do we have support, Kraft? Any comments or questions? All in favor, please vote. If you're, or abstain. Number 10, new business. Any new business from commissioners? Commissioner Smith.
Thank you. Mark Bernstein emailed me this letter that you have on your desk the other day. If you would read it, it does say that they were appointed to the steering committee, and further yet they were appointed to the smaller plaintiff executive committee. That's just in the middle of it. They are going to come out and talk to us soon. They're sending a damage assessment team to Macomb County. However, I just wanted to let you know this short bit of information that Macomb has the only legal team with an office in Michigan that's on the plaintiff executive committee. So I guess that's where we want to be if we're in this thing.
All right, very good. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Any Commissioner Kleinfeld?
There are two sides of the table. Chair. Just one quick thing. You know, my confusion on whether or not we could do that, make that into an ordinance, a countywide ordinance, has me thinking. I had previously talked about getting some sort of a workshop to talk to us about the Open Meetings Act, and I know that most of our ordinances are specific to our county buildings and our property, but there are exemptions apparently, and if I'm foggy on where we start and where the cities and townships end on some of these, I don't think I'd be alone. So just throwing it out there, I really think it would be good for us to have some sort of workshop on those, just on those things at some point. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from staff? Seeing and hearing none. 11. Wrong finger, Commissioner Leonetti. 11, public participation. Anyone in the public wishing to speak, going once, twice, thrice, close public participation. We have a motion by Leonetti, support by Grillette, adjourn. Please vote. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen.